This is episode 56 of the Ownstream podcast, featuring Freyja Inanna. Welcome to the Ownstream podcast. I'm Teresa Scoba.
And I'm Stephen Shelley.
And we're so happy to release this episode with Freyja Inanna, which just came about in such a magical way. As we've been traveling through Costa Rica, one of the really special things and one of the things we intended for this trip, which has really come true, is that we've been connecting with all sorts of conscious, creative people living their calling here in Costa Rica and creating tremendous service for others, living powerful, free, like just wild lives. And it's been really a pleasure and a really important part of our journey to be encountering and meeting people along the way. And this was the case with Freyja Inanna in this interview. I met her just a couple days ago at a women's gathering, which has been going on many years in South Central Costa Rica near San Ysidro de General. And we just ended up kind of sitting together at breakfast, and I heard a little bit about her story and was just blown away and thought, this story definitely needs to be told on the Ownstream podcast. And, Freyja, she'll tell it beautifully, but her transformation is one of those that is so, possibly the most transformative in terms of where she came from to where she is now, that we've had on the podcast, and also somebody who has transformed what was a painful theme in her life into one that is a gift she's giving to the world, which I think is, often the calling can tend to come from some pain point or some theme in your life. And Freyja spent many years, she grew up in a conservative, repressive Mormon culture, daughter of a family of polygamy, and then, married a polygamist who became a leader in their community. And when she was 15 through an arranged marriage, and then had 12 children through that marriage and lived in that relationship for 28 years. And she talks really candidly about how repressive that was and what was expected of her as a young person and then as a wife and mother in that culture, and how so much of her power was in her natural tendencies and things that even her voice, was absolutely repressed. And what a magical transformative experience she's been through. And now she gives the gift of awakening into your full power to women and to men through practice of integrative orgasmic therapy, which is it's really powerful. And she talks a lot about how important it is to heal trauma and to move through trauma by using a physical release, which a lot of, we talk a lot about the spiritual path and how people can get stuck in conditioning and always, never really find their way through triggers. And she talks a lot about how this work that she does that because it releases all conditioning and trauma at every level of the body, mind, spirit, and energetic level, so that one can step into their full power. So she's a beautiful example of this. I'm, just really excited to release this episode. And I'm doing this intro to Freyja myself because I did the interview myself. This was one of those interviews where Stephen needed to be watching Sophia. So it's just me and Freyja in this conversation. And the other thing I want to say before I turn over to Stephen is that you'll probably hear a lot of, you'll hear some banging noises, I think, in the interview. That her cats were running all over the roof. I didn't know what animals it was. You never know in Costa Rica. You always get treated in these Costa Rica interviews to whatever kind of wildlife is around. And these were pet cats. But anyway, they were running all over the roof. So you may catch a little bit of that noise during this interview.
Yeah, this is the third live interview we've conducted in Costa Rica. And the first one was Marvin Rockwell. And we had all kinds of sounds on his property up there in Monteverde. And then Amy Schrift. And all kinds of amazing sounds, particularly the cicadas in where she lives near Platanillo and Tinamaste. And then this recent episode with the roof noise. We've got some roof noise here too at night. There's all kinds of things happening around this house. It's really amazing. We're tucked into this beautiful little community up here in the mountains of Costa Rica, and everywhere you turn, you meet somebody who has just a profound story of transformation. It's a very special spot we've been led to. The circumstances that led us up here are completely magical and coincidental and clear that this is where we were supposed to go. And so it should be no surprise that our guest that we're featuring from this particular stop was introduced to us in a similarly magical way. Amy Schrift, our episode 53 guest, which is, again, a spectacular interview. If you haven't heard that, ooh, my God. If you're living in a city frustrated with those conditions, or you're working a desk job, you will be, it's like just a fresh breeze blowing through your soul, that entire interview. It's beautiful. But anyway, Amy Schrift, after that interview, invited Teresa to come to this women's gathering. And so, of course, she goes to the women's gathering and meets somebody from this part of Costa Rica, which is not, there's like maybe 100 expats up here, maybe more than that, but not a lot of people, not a lot of expats up here. And so anyway, of course, she was led right to Freyja. And during the interview, Freyja's partner, Michael, and their son and I and Sophia went out for dinner. We went to the Rocadura restaurant, which, of course, as Michael pointed out, is the Hard Rock Cafe, translated from Spanish to English, but we had a nice time there. And there are horses going by on the street below us after dark. And on the way back, Michael and their son were so excited to see fireflies and stars. And it's just life in the country. It's so simple and beautiful. It's very, very sweet. Stroll back from the restaurant. Anyway, so that was my experience. But as is the case when you're on the road with the 2-year-old, someone does childcare, and this was clearly to be Teresa's moment to lead this interview. So I'm excited to hear it too. I will listen along with you. So a couple of very quick things. Shout out to our pal Kirk. He corrected my English, I guess it is, because when we've been giving URLs, we've been saying ownstream.co / and then the person's name, and it's a /. So we will fix that going forward, so forgive us for that. Hopefully you haven't been stumbling around trying to find all our URLs. We have in the last week started a YouTube channel. You can find that at ownstream.co / YouTube, and you'll be taken right over there. But we've got a bunch of subscribers within the first week. Our van build video has like a few thousand views already, which is really exciting. And one thing we want you to know is more and more we're trying to be very transparent with our journey and our path and what we're doing out here and what is this search all about. It started in the van back in August, or did it? Probably started sooner than that. And now here we are knee-deep in the jungle in the mountains of Costa Rica and kind of finding our spot, it seems. We don't actually know, but we've found a place to take a next step with, a second date, if you will. And so anyway, we're chronicling all of this on our YouTube channel, weekly updates that go out every Friday. So if you're somebody kind of contemplating the question of where is home, what does it mean to find home, is there an ideal circumstance for me? What does that search look like? What does it mean to give up everything and go out into the world with an open calendar and itinerary and search for your true paradise, your homeland? We've been using these words. So if that subject interests you, our content right now will definitely interest you, because that's what we're talking a lot about. And we're killing it on Facebook. We've added so many people in the last week, probably due to the Bentinho Massaro interview and a few other things. But check us out on Facebook too. We're doing a lot there. Facebook.com / Ownstream. Okay. Enjoy this one, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back afterwards to wrap up, but do enjoy this special conversation with Freyja Inanna.
Freyja, welcome to the Ownstream podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Really happy to be here with you. I'm here with Freyja in her home in San Gerardo de Rivas in Costa Rica, and we met this past weekend at a women's gathering here that's been going for many years. that I found out about through Amy Schrift, who I interviewed a few weeks ago for the podcast. And so it's beautiful. Freyja and I ended up having lunch together, and I heard a little bit about her amazing transformation story and the powerful work she does with people healing today. And it was just very clear that it would be wonderful to tell her story here on the podcast. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor. And I know that my transformation journey has been so profound, and that it's all part of the work that I am here on the earth and meant to do, to guide many, many women through this process and to show up in a way that shows them that they can do it, because where I came from is so different from where I am now. And if I can do it, so can they. Yes.
I love it. So maybe we can get started by talking a little bit about where you came from. Tell us a little bit about your childhood, the culture you grew up in, what that was like to be a woman in that culture.
I grew up in southern Alberta until I was 15. Our family was the only family in that area that belonged to the fundamentalist Mormon church. Many of you may have heard of it. It's called the FLDS church, and yes, it practiced polygamy. And because my dad had 2 wives and we were living in an area that was predominantly mainstream Mormon, it wasn't really very fun growing up in that area, because it was like we were outcasts, especially the kids. And my mom was pretty isolated, so it was like having friends was unusual. If you found a friend, you held on to that friend, and it was actually really quite traumatic in a lot of ways. I saw my brothers beat up in school, and so for me it was mostly not having the friends and the verbal persecution, but for my brothers it was the physical abuse as well. So it was really... So when I had the chance to get married in an arranged marriage at the age of 15, I jumped at it. So
I knew about, you've told me about your arranged marriage at age 15, so I was going to ask like how that, it's interesting that you jumped at it, because in a way it was an escape, but how it felt, was that something that you wanted? Was that something that or is it maybe an escape out of your life at that point?
It was definitely an escape from my life at that point. I wanted to be in the community in British Columbia, because I felt, if we're a part of this religion and it's true, why can't we live with other people who believe the same way and get out of this persecution? And so when 2 of the girls that I knew that were around my age, they were about a year older than me, got married, that were from that community, I was like, well, why can't I too? And I just saw it as a way to get away. So it was kind of like jumping from one frying pan to another, essentially.
And so you were married at 15.
Yes.
And you became the wife of a polygamist leader, right, in British Columbia?
Yeah, he wasn't the leader at the time, but he, a few years later, became the leader of the community. That part of the FLDS, he wasn't like the prophet at that time, but he was like the bishop of that community in British Columbia. And when I married him, I was his second wife, and he and his first wife were about 10 years older than myself. So it was like quite an age difference and an expectation for me to be an adult, which, I was really, really quite mature at the time, but still I was only 15, and that was a lot of responsibility, because it's essentially you're jumping right into, okay, they have 5 kids already, I'm supposed to take care of the kids and, do all the laundry. And he had younger brothers that lived with us that we took care of, and it was a lot. It was a lot.
Talk about a little bit about what it feels like to be a woman in that culture and what the expectations are. I know you were getting into it a bit there, being the second wife, what that's like what the expectations were of you in that role, and how you felt being there.
Well, the expectations for women in that community, it is a very patriarchal organization. Women essentially do not have a voice, especially, it has kind of evolved. That part of the community has become a little more, there's a lot of women who just aren't accepting it anymore in the younger generation. So It's really interesting because a lot of them are speaking up, and it's kind of coming full circle, and they're just not tolerating it and putting up with it. But when I was married, the women very much had to be obedient. They were to be obedient. They were to follow this hierarchy. If they had an opinion that was different from their husband, then they didn't have an opinion, really. And it was all about keep sweet. There was this saying, you were supposed to keep sweet. And if you didn't, then you'd lost the Spirit of God. If you asked for more time, you were a jealous bitch. If, it just was very, very disempowering in so many ways.
And you had 13 children in this relationship.
I had 12 in that relationship.
12 in that relationship.
Yeah, 12 in that relationship. And my 13th child is Michael's and mine. We chose to have him because we wanted the experience of raising a child that would always know his own divinity and know that he can create whatever he chooses to create, and to not be limited and told to stuff his emotions. And it's just really, really beautiful watching this joyful child grow. And he is a bridge. He creates connections over races because he is bi-ethnic. And my children absolutely love him. It doesn't matter that he has a different father than they do. And so there's just so many connections and love. He's a bridge of love in so many ways.
How is this experience raising him different from raising your children before?
I have so much more support. It's like having a partner who is completely involved in his upbringing and absolutely supportive of me in every way. And he actually, lots of the time, prefers that I have the ultimate say in a lot of the decision making, which was so different for me to get used to. It was a real stretch for me to come from not having a voice to being completely honored in my voice and encouraged to speak my truth.
And so even though you were in this culture of repression and oppression, you kind of were an entrepreneur. You kind of were finding your calling, it seems like, in there. You became a healer. You were doing herbalism. You were doing aromatherapy. Talk a little bit about finding some of your calling, finding some of your purpose as you were in that culture, and what it was like to try to bring that forth.
It was a really, really interesting process because I was kind of going beyond the realms of what was accepted in that culture. First doing the herbal medicine and then doing the aromatherapy. When I started into the aromatherapy, that was a really big woo-woo type of a thing that people often didn't agree with. And my husband in particular was really skeptical and kind of forbade me to use it on the children for a little while. And even then, sometimes it was like when he started to become more accepting of it, because people saw how it worked. They felt it. They experienced it. And the more people experienced it, the more it spread. So it was kind of like I brought a whole new modality into the community, and it became actually really widely accepted within the community.
Wow.
The crystal therapy never did, really. That was a little too out there for a lot of people. But it was an amazing process. And it was kind of my way of rebelling, in a way of saying, this is part of who I am, and this is who I get to be, and I am the healer. I am, I was jokingly referred to as a witch, or maybe not so jokingly referred to. But it was a process, and it did a lot of good, and it's something that has continued to be valued and used in the community even after I left.
So you left. So you were there for, in that marriage for decades of your life,
28 years.
28 years. So what happened? What changed? How did you get out? What transformed within you? What happened?
I had been so repressed and so unhappy and dissatisfied in what was my relationship and what was my lot in life, so to speak. And when you're told that if you're not happy, it's your own fault. And I had been in a place where I wanted to leave for a long time, but it is a very fear-based religion, and so it's like if you leave, then you're going to hell, basically. So there's this fear component that keeps people obedient and submissive, especially the women. And I was at a place where I was really considering leaving, and then I ended up experiencing a self-empowerment program, which was about a year through that process before I finally said, the only thing that was keeping me there was my belief that there was any truth in the religion. And once I realized, God does want me to be happy, I do deserve a meaningful relationship. And so I decided, I even talked myself into staying a little longer, thinking I could change things from the inside. But you can't change when people don't want to change. So I finally accepted that. I had to accept that within me.
Yeah.
And decide that, okay, if I'm going to stay here, then I'm complicit with what's going on. And I can't be complicit any longer. And so I left. And it was a really big step. Some of my kids were really upset about it and tried to talk me out of it. And one of my daughters even says, "Oh, Dad will give you what you want. If you just tell him what you need, he'll give you what you need to be happy." And I'm like, no, I am not going to be in a relationship that's based on an ultimatum. Because I wanted to be with someone who actually wanted to be with me, to spend time with me. And so I left, and a couple of months later, it was so powerful. I just got really, really clear on the kind of relationship that I desired and that I deserved to have in my life. I wrote it down in my journal, how that would feel to be in that relationship. And 2 weeks later, Michael asked me out, and he's my husband now. And so it's been an amazing, amazing journey ever since.
I read that part in your bio, and I love it because it's like almost exactly what happened with me and Stephen. And I had many years of unsuccessful relationships, and I had a kind of a coach who was a law of attraction coach, and she told me to just write it down. And it was like, but I love how I know you capitalize the word feel in your bio, kind of like how it would feel. What kind of things did you write? Like what came out?
Let's remember back. Okay. It was like that we would have this amazing connection between us on all levels, and that it would be a relationship based on I choose you, not I need you. And not putting that burden on someone to fulfill all my needs, or it's not an obligation. It's like a desire. So the desire is met, and honored, to be honored and respected and desired, and all of it. I wanted all of it, not just pieces. So,
and it's kind of amazing because it was, compared to what you'd been taught or grown up in or lived in a marriage in for many years, it was very different. Like, how did that awakening come about for you? I know you went to a training. Like, what do you think was awakened inside? How did you know who you were all of a sudden and what you really wanted? And how long after that did you kind of start pursuing a purpose that felt really yours?
That was an amazing process, because when I'd been through this training that I spoke of, I had finally gotten in touch with myself on an essential level, more of who I am. I knew the healer part. And I was just getting in touch with the sensual, sexual part of me that had been so repressed, because this religion was incredibly sexually repressive as well. And so that part of me needed to be healed, and that was the next step. And so through that exploration, and then it was like, what I realized before I left was that to stay in that religion, in that place of repression, I just started to get to know me, and to go back to that place, I would have to submerge that part of me again. And that would be even more painful, than it had been before I got to know that part of me.
Yeah.
I mean, those parts of me that I'd kept hidden. And so moving forward, I'd done so much work through this program. We'd just done so much work. We both had. And then it probably was 2.5 years more before I came across this amazing healing modality. And the way that happened is I had a nephew through marriage who had always been really quiet and almost a darker energy, very sullen, kind of depressed. And of course, he'd been raised in the same religion. And when I saw his pictures on Facebook, him and his wife and their kids, it's like the light had come on and they were alive. They were totally vibrant and alive and shining. And I was like, okay, what have you been doing? Because something is different. Something is hugely different. It's like you've transformed. I mean, it's like your wife is totally in her goddess energy. I see that. So what did you do? And he told me about this amazing healing modality. And at the time it was called explosive sexual healing. And the creators of the modality, Ben and Jen Rhodey, it's like they downloaded this information. This is channeled. They each came to it with their pieces of it. And it was... And there's so much more to it. I mean, the name explosive sexual healing just didn't convey everything that we want. And I got a hold of them. I had questions, and I'm like, this is what we're supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. Because coming from that culture where women were so repressed and so sexually repressed, and there was so much repression, and it's like my nephew had said, he says, Auntie, I was suicidal. This saved my life. This absolutely saved my life. And I knew then, it's like I have this tingling feeling, kind of like a mushroom trip type of a thing, where it's like, I know this is what I'm supposed to do. And I showed my husband, and he agreed. He was totally on board with it. And it took us a little while, but we created the funds, and we went and did the practitioner training, and they were in Southern California at the time. And it was a really interesting experience because my mom came all the way from British Columbia, watched our children while we went to this training. And I've heard how when you do the healing work, then it affects generations forward and generations back. And just in that time from when I had left to do the training and when I came back to do the hands-on part of the training, because we'd already been doing months of online stuff and homework, and it was like she had opened up so much more and talked about things that showed an extremely high level of movement, of opening up and healing than I had ever experienced in her before. And that was because I dared to go and do that healing work on such a deep level, and experience the sessions and do the sessions and step into this healing work. And she's now a Reiki master because we taught her that and initiated her into the Reiki energy. So it's just a beautiful thing to witness. And so since we took that training and stepped into this work, we have created such deep transformation in our own lives and the lives of in co-creation with those who have come to us for the work, witnessed amazing, beautiful transformations in their lives. It's incredibly powerful. And we changed the name of the modality to integrative orgasmic healing, because there is an orgasmic component to it, but it's so much more, and healing happens on all levels because we're working on the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the energetic levels simultaneously to release the traumas, release the shame, release the emotions that are stored inside, these things that create depression and anxiety in people and fear, and they keep them stuck and unable to move forward into their passion and into their purpose. And it's one of the things that's so beautiful. When people do this work, they get in touch with their purpose.
So many questions about the work. So tell us a little more about integrative orgasmic healing. Like, what is it, and what kind of transformations do you see, and why? Well, I wanted to ask you, like, so many people get stuck on the spiritual path, sort of, trying to grind through their limiting beliefs, or like they just never get past their limiting beliefs and triggers. Like, why is this so important? Why is a physical release so important? And how does that happen through this modality?
That's a really, really important question, and I'm so glad you brought it up. When we experience traumas and programming and limiting beliefs that we are programmed with from the time we're children, and sometimes before, when we're in the womb, we're starting to be programmed with all of this stuff. And sometimes even people have past life experiences that are holding them back, and that they're bringing forward in their DNA. And so when you have these things that are programmed into your subconscious mind, then it doesn't matter if you make a shift in your mental beliefs. Like your brain knows that belief isn't valid any longer, but the subconscious mind is actually, it's like the program, the computer program that's running in the background, that's controlling and running everything, and it needs an operating system upgrade. And that's what we do, is operating system upgrades. And so we're using voice, breath, and movement in the release portion of the sessions, where you're releasing those limiting beliefs, those traumas, and they're stored in the body. They're in the body, and so we're using the somatic body work to find where those things are stored, actually in the body, and then guiding people through a process where they go into that pain and discover what's been stored there, because the body is so intelligent. It knows everything. So it's about trusting your body and trusting what it's telling you, finding whatever it is underneath there, and then releasing it. And when people experience modalities that only work on 1 or 2 levels, which most modalities only work on 1 or maybe 2 levels.
Is that like out of mind, body, spirit, 1 or 2 levels? Or
yeah, it was like mind as in the mental and emotional, so that's kind of 2 levels in the mind. And then the body, and it's the physical level, the spirit is the energetic level, and so everything got stored on all of those levels. So for an example, like when a person experiences physical or sexual abuse, then, or any kind of abuse, that's not only stored on the emotional level in the body, but when you go to talk therapy, for example, it's only going to work on the emotional level, maybe some of the mental level. And so people can go through months or even years of that and feel like they're making slow progress. And they might even get to the point where they feel like they've healed it. And then the next time they get into a new relationship, an intimate relationship, and they get triggered on the physical level, it all comes back. It re-traumatizes. And it's like it was never gone, because it wasn't. It was still in the body on the energetic and the physical levels. And so that's just the way it works. If it's there on any one level and you get triggered on that level, it's going to come back. So it's so important to release on all 4 levels. And that's what's the magic in this work, is that it does release on all 4 levels. And then you can heal it and move forward and have a relationship that is beautiful. People can experience their pleasure. And it's, releasing the shame too. Like if you've been released to believe that sex is immoral or bad or wrong, there's something wrong with you for wanting it, or then often we shut our pleasure down. It's completely gone. We'll numb it out. And so then it's important to not only release the shame and release the trauma, but then to reprogram the neural pathways that allow you to experience your pleasure. And then it changes everything, because it's your relationships. And that's the reason for the sexual part of this, like the orgasmic part of this work, is that you then reprogram the subconscious mind, because in the state of orgasm, the ego cannot exist. So that's a perfect opportunity for using that space, which is like a hypnotic trance state, to reprogram with the powerful, powerful affirmations and have that go in at a DNA cellular level. And it's just beautiful to watch the transformation that happens with that. And not only that, it's those lower two chakras, the sacral chakra, which is actually the seat of the self. It is, in essence, who you are. So when we disconnect from that part of who we are, we're actually rejecting ourselves at a deep, deep level. And so to reclaim that part of us, which is so essential. And not only is it that essential part of who we are, but that sacral center controls our creativity, our manifestation in abundance. It's our relationships, it's our emotions, it's our magnetic, it's our power. It really is. And when that's blocked, everything else is blocked. Our power is blocked. Our hearts are blocked. Our voices are blocked. It's all blocked. Because if the energy can't move up the channel, nothing happens. So it affects literally every area of our lives.
Wow. I got chills when you were talking about that. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about, like, knowing a little bit about your own background, like what this released for you. How did you personally transform through this modality? Like, what did you let go of? What did you find in terms of your own power? And then maybe some of the transformations you've seen in others.
For myself, going through this, I was always so afraid to speak my truth. I can remember being back in the community and be literally shaking and trembling inside, just asking for a couple of hours of time, or to say no. I had one of my daughters taken from me and given to one of the other women who hadn't had children, and when I tried to say no, I was shamed for not sharing. And so then later, when I finally took her back, I was terrified. I was shaking. I was just like, enough. This is my child. I'm having her back, and just shaking. It was terrifying. And so then, when I knew that this was my work, this was my passion, and this was it's my purpose to show up in a way that empowers other women and teaches them how they can step into their power, reclaim their pleasure, and step into purpose in a way that is so powerful and that is absolutely authentic. Because true freedom is being able to speak your truth and be fully seen, felt, and heard, be fully expressed as all of who you are without the need for the approval of others. That's freedom. Without fear. Even if we're afraid when we step into it, it's all perfect, because we don't actually ever create true expansion in anything that's worthwhile without actually moving through the fear. It's always on the other side of your comfort zone, and it's so worth it. And so to be the one who stands in that and lights the way for other women to be able to come forward out of oppression and to reclaim their power, their passion, and really step into their purpose is amazing. It just feels amazing. And it was fucking scary to start talking about publicly all these things that I'd been shamed for all my life. And to, come from a place where you can't even say the word sex, really, and start being a teacher of sexuality and healing sexuality, and step into, oh my God, a work that actually has an orgasmic component to it.
Right.
Wow. But to see this happen, I mean, we've seen women who've come to us, and it's not only for women, we've seen amazing transformations with men as well. I mean, one young man who totally changed the course of his life, and he claimed his inner shaman, and he's changed everything. But for these women who, you know, sometimes have been in very disempowering relationships, or, you know, have been very repressed in their sexuality. I mean, we've had women in their 60s who've never been able to step into their sexuality, who've just blown everything out. I mean, they've changed their whole course of their lives into a different job. It's like, I've hated my job for years. Done. I'm done. And, you know, quit their job, stepped into something else. Opened up their third eye. Like, it's like this woman in her 60s who became a total psychic. It's like downloading everything, visions and everything, and she'd repressed that all of her life because it was wrong to be a witch, right? There's a lot of past life stuff coming up for women here who are repressing their intuition because of the messages that have come down through the generations and generations of fear of the witches being hunted down and killed. I mean, even if it's not their past life experience, then it's handed down in the DNA through the generations, and so much has been repressed. And we've had women who've had severe sexual trauma as children that had completely numbed out their pleasure or experienced pain with any kind of sexual intercourse, and that affects your relationships, not just your relationships, but your own experience and inability to feel the pleasure. And through healing their traumas, they were able to heal the pain and to waken up their pleasure and show up in relationships in a completely new way. And I remember one message we got from one of our clients one time where she said, it was after a retreat, she'd gone home, and she says, I didn't realize there was so much in the way until it was gone. And then there was just the pleasure. So it's just beautiful. I mean, we love hearing from our clients and what they're doing in their lives. And it goes on for years of, like, it's not like they just go through the 3 retreats and they're done and that's the whole transformation, because they're getting the tools to bring this forward into their lives, and it's an ongoing transformation that happens for years. Like, even for myself, my pictures from the time I started into the training and then moved forward as a practitioner till now, in the last 3 years, it's like the facial recognition on the computer doesn't recognize me.
Wow.
So it's crazy. So it's from the inside out. It's transformation from the inside out. I've lost 60 pounds.
Wow. And for seeing those pictures, and we'll probably put them with the blog post, or I know they're on your website. It's incredible. I mean, the radiance, the energy, like you keep talking about kind of like your true power coming out. You know, like what do you see as your true power and your purpose?
My purpose is to reawaken the sacred sacral fire in every woman that I am blessed to come into contact with. And for us, it's to help women to see that, to reawaken that part of themselves and to step into their power, to reclaim their pleasure and connect with their passion and their purpose. And for the men that we work with, it's to activate the sacred warrior within them so that they can step powerfully into their masculine while yet honoring and protecting the feminine on the earth, including Mother Earth. So.
And what's the process like? Like, how long does it take for someone? I know you mentioned it goes on later for a lifetime, but is it different for every person, or how long is kind of the process of the healing?
What we have found is that the ideal process is it's a 3-month process that they work with us, and then of course it goes on for months and years to come where they take these tools and use them in their lives. But they are getting the foundation and a huge amount of transformation in that 90-day process, which includes 3 hands-on retreats with us, plus the work that they're doing in between. And so it's the hands-on sessions. They're here for 3 5-day retreats, and in beautiful Costa Rica. Wonderful place to integrate and experience this healing. It's just, the energy is so clear and beautiful here that it facilitates the process to be in this energy and just shedding of everything that no longer serves. So that's, it's a 90-day process, like I said, and they're done. It's not one of these keep you coming back for more things, because they leave with the tools that they need to continue to transform their lives at a deep, deep level.
And so you mentioned experiencing their pleasure. So why is that so important? Is it just, to enjoy your life, or is it deeper? Is it more important than that?
It is much more important than that. It's actually, it's essential. Being able to experience pleasure is absolutely non-negotiable. It's essential for multiple reasons, but one of the hugest reasons is that if you're not allowing yourself to experience your pleasure, you're not allowing yourself to receive in any area of your life. It's about being willing to receive, not only in pleasure, but in every aspect of life. And when you don't, it's out of balance. The whole balance of nature is affected. If one person is give, and they not receive, then they're trying to give from an empty cup, essentially. And not only that, but they are not allowing the other people that are around them in their lives to give. And actually, that's selfish. Because who are we to feel like that we are the only ones who can have the pleasure of giving? And there's just way more facets to it, way more aspects to it than just feeling pleasure for pleasure's sake. Another part of it is that ecstatic state of orgasm is actually what connects us to our higher selves in a huge way. And when we're in that state of orgasmic bliss, there's an open channel to our higher selves. And when two people, or whatever relationship structure that we have, whether it's ourselves alone and we're loving ourselves, or whether it's two people together, or you have a sacred triad, or whatever situation it is, when you are connecting on all levels like that, all your chakras are coming together, you are connecting with divine source in that act, because this is a sacred act. We need to reconnect the sacred with the heart, with the pleasure, all of it connects. Then we have this connection with source that is so deep and so profound that we're not actually going to allow anyone to say that they need to be between us and God, telling us what God wants us to do. And this is why sexuality has been repressed over the ages, is to keep us disconnected from source, disconnected from the divinity of who we are, so that we can be shamed and so that we can be controlled. So when you have a woman who is connected with her pleasure, she is also going to be connected with her voice. She is not going to be controlled. And this creates generations of young people who are not going to be controlled and manipulated. And the forces of government and religion and everything else, they don't want that. So keeping that shame in place has been essential. And we're moving out of that. We're moving into a more balanced and feminine. This whole movement, this Me Too movement and everything that's coming along with this. This is not just about creating a matriarchy that's the opposite of a patriarchy. This is about creating balance. And because not only have women been repressed, but the entire feminine energy of the earth and the feminine energy within the men has all been repressed. I mean, men have been taught to despise anything feminine in themselves, which has been a very, very unhealthy thing and created a lot of pain and anger and repression. Everyone suffers. We've all paid the price dearly.
This is great, and I really wanted to talk about this with you, so I'm glad that you've brought this up. So can you talk a little bit more about this, like where all of this came from, this repression of both the feminine and the masculine, what kind of forces of control are at play, and how that's kind of playing out now in the way that our world is appearing to fall apart?
Yeah, it is. One of the aspects where the feminine got really, really repressed is when we moved from the nomadic lifestyle of hunter-gatherer into the agricultural lifestyle. And all of a sudden it became important to men, because now they owned property, to hand down their property to their progeny. And then all of a sudden it became important for them to know that it was their progeny and not another man's progeny. And so then all of a sudden women became property and they were owned. And it was a huge shift. And it's been going on for thousands of years. So women's sexuality was repressed, and then religion became a part of it because the church became the largest landowner. It actually owned the most land of any owners, the Catholic Church did. And it became really, really important for them to have lots of free labor, like lots of cheap labor, the serfs to farm and run the land. And so because the women were in control of the birth rate, particularly the midwives and the healers, they had to repress them even further. And so then the witch hunts came about. And in the witch's hammer, there was a statement saying that these women, the healers, were very dangerous, and they were the witches, and that they must be hunted down and killed. And of these healers, none are so dangerous as the midwives. So they were hunted down, and the male physicians took over. And they have this image of witches as being these weirdly dressed women who are selling eye of newt and horn of unicorn and these kinds of remedies. But that's actually what the male physicians were selling, that kind of weird shit, right? So, and the women were the herbalists and the healers. They were the trusted ones. And women didn't have children they didn't want and couldn't take care of back then, because they knew how to not, because of the midwives and the healers. And so when you start condemning these and not only killing them, but killing them in front of their daughters, so that this tradition cannot be carried on because they used fear to repress, then no wonder the women were so traumatized that they allowed themselves to become subservient and to no longer be able to speak. I mean, if you spoke, you got boiled in oil or hung or burned at the stake or whatever, or thrown in the water. And if you floated, you were a witch. So then you got burned, So it's so much trauma, deep, deep trauma that has been carried forward through the generations, and we're just now coming out of it. We really are, and we're claiming that right. And I know there are still parts of the world where women are stoned for being sexual. And so it's still a process, and it's so important for us to really step powerfully into this and speak our truth, because we're all paying the price, not just the women. Everyone's paying the price.
And I know you used the term goddess energy a little earlier. Can you talk a little bit about, for listeners who might not be as familiar with the concepts of feminine and masculine in the way that you're using them, like what is the divine feminine, and why is it so important that energy is released on the planet right now?
The divine feminine is essentially, it's that feminine energy that is receptive and yet powerful. It's like the feminine is the receiving. It is the ebb. It is the chaos. It is the cleansing. It is emotion incarnate. It is speaking truth. It is healing. There's so much that has been repressed that is the feminine. Like the earth holds the feminine energy. One thing that I read recently, which was a beautiful analogy, is that the feminine, the woman, is the reflection of what the masculine is putting out there. So we reflect back. It's like the moon reflects the sun. The sun is the masculine, the moon is the feminine energy. The moon reflects back what is being put out there by the masculine. But right now, we have to turn it around. And so the goddess energy, by reclaiming our pleasure and stepping into speaking our truth, we're actually taking the lead in healing what needs to be healed for the divine masculine to come in and come back into balance as the protectors. And that, yes, they're the warrior, but that warrior energy is meant to be in protection of the women, the children, and the sacred Mother Earth. So that's what I mean by the goddess, is you're stepping into your power, you're speaking your truth, but in a way that is not, it's like, for an example, with this Me Too movement,
Right.
We're having some women that are stepping into a very much a reflection of the ego masculine, where it's really attacking. But the real divine feminine and the goddess is saying, no more, we have a boundary, we will not accept this anymore, and this is where we're going to take it. It's not all men are evil, it's let us teach you how to show up where they don't know. And quite honestly, if the women did not support the patriarchy, it could not exist. So we as women have been complicit with the patriarchal energy in allowing it, and so many women don't realize that. They've just been taught it their whole lives, right? So I don't know what more to say, really. It's just the goddess energy is standing in our power, in the feminine power, not reflecting the ego masculine, not stepping into the masculine energy as a way of being powerful, because actually that takes away from our power as women.
Right.
And that's where you get...
And it's our divine power, right?
It is our divine power. It is our divine power.
Connection with Source.
Our connection with Source, our connection with our receptivity and allowing ourselves to receive. And actually, when you've got the divine masculine showing up and the divine feminine is receiving, that brings great joy and this giving and receiving. And so much of the time we have been taught as women that we need to show up and give our man pleasure, but, not enjoy it too much ourselves, right? I mean, if you enjoy it, you're a slut, right? And that's a bad thing. But when you shift that around and it's a good thing, and we're in our power and we're allowing the man or, our partners, if our partner's a woman, great, if we're allowing ourselves to receive, that actually increases the pleasure for both people so much more. And it becomes a sacred ritual of giving and receiving rather than being it's like a transactional exchange is what it is so often in so many relationships.
It feels like, we're often talking about a new earth coming around now, and being birthed. And I know you've talked about the work you do with people as a rebirth.
Yes.
it feels like the co-creative potential of people who have gone through this work could be tremendous in that capacity. I'm curious about like this individual work that you do with people and with couples. Like, how do you see, like, what do you see as kind of like the co-creative potential there for the transformation happening on the planet, for the potential that we all have as human beings?
What I see happening is that each person who has the courage and steps forward and does this deep healing work, they are accessing their full potential. And every time somebody does this and then steps out in the world and shows up as the gift that they are meant to be and shares their gifts and shines their light, it gives every person around them that they touch the permission to do the same thing. And that is their ripple. They have no idea how many people they are going to affect in their lives. And this is how we heal the planet, by doing this work, because it's so much bigger than just the people we work with individually, because they touch so many other people in their lives as well. It's huge. It really is.
It's awesome. We have 3 questions we ask at the end of every interview. So I think I'll ask you those now, unless there's anything about your work I didn't cover that you'd want to share first.
I can't think of anything.
Good, okay. So the first of the 3 questions is, what book or books up to 3 would you recommend that every human being should read?
Ooh, That's a hard one.
That's okay, you can take a moment.
Well, definitely The 4 Agreements. I love the 4 Agreements. There's a book called Vagina by Naomi Wolf. Yes. That is so good. It's so good.
Cool.
Yeah. One of the things I love that she said is that you can tell how women are viewed in any society by the way the vagina is viewed in that society. something to that effect. And when it's spoken of disparagingly and seen as dirty, or any of things like that, you can tell how women are treated and viewed in that society by how, whether or not the vagina, the yoni, is honored or not in that society. So that's pretty big insight. I was like, whoa.
Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And let's see, another one. I would have to say Wayne Dyer's I Can See Clearly Now. A wonderful, wonderful book.
Cool. That's great. The second question is, if you could share one thing with somebody who's really still stuck deep in their pain. We often use the word matrix. Deep in the matrix specifically. You do too. Yeah. Stuck in their past traumas, really feeling trapped. If you could just share one thing with them, or offer one thing, or a truth or a practice, what would it be?
Well, let's see. What I would share with them is that no matter how stuck you're feeling or how trapped you feel, it is possible to heal it. It doesn't matter how deep the wounding is. It is possible to heal it, because we've seen it over and over and over. We've been through it. We've healed deep trauma ourselves in our own bodies and in our own minds. And just know, we've seen PTSD. We've seen physical ailments that have shifted with people because things like fibromyalgia that aren't supposed to be curable, things like that. And I'm not saying that we can cure that, but the human body, once it has released what is in there at the deepest level, this is the core issue that needs to be healed, that's creating the problem, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's emotional. It's possible. You can heal it. You really can. It can completely transform your life.
It's so empowering, because so many people don't know the connection between storing emotional trauma and disease. It's like a big mystery that disease just gets set upon us, but that we have the power. It's so exciting.
It is exciting, and you see these things where people will have a physical disease and they'll get it cut out of their body and then it comes back.
Yep.
Because taking it out at the physical level is not the only thing necessary. It's there on an emotional level, an energetic level, a mental level. You have to release it all before it's going to stay gone.
The third and final question is, what are you most excited about in your life right now?
I am so incredibly excited about reaching more people, working with more people, witnessing more incredible transformation, because this work really truly does light us up. It's so incredibly rewarding just witnessing the miracles that each person creates in their lives. That's ours.
It's awesome. So on that note, we'll end if you could just tell us, where people can reach you online and anything that's coming up for you that you would want people to know about.
Online, we are at inannasanctuary.com, INANNA sanctuary.com. And email, we can be reached at trust@inannasanctuary.com. And we're putting out an offer for people to look us up, check out our website. If they would like a consultation with us to really go deep and find what is really getting in their way in their lives, to find out what's working, what's not working, where their blocks are, and what they can do to shift all that and create the life of their dreams, to tap into their pleasure, to connect with their purpose, like any of that stuff, we'd offer them a free consultation. And we really go deep, move a lot of energy. At the end of that time, they're going to know, we're going to know if we're a good fit or not. We can direct them in another direction if we're not. And it's incredible. It's a wonderful experience.
And they have a beautiful home here and the work that they do here. Do you do work all in person or some remotely?
We are putting together a program that we can do more remotely, which is not available yet, but will be soon. But the most part of our work, we do some online mentoring, like phone calls, but the deepest work is in person in intensive retreat format here in Costa Rica. So, but it's so worth it. And who wouldn't want to come here, right?
Oh, it's a beautiful, transformative place.
Yeah, we're doing like 3-hour intensive sessions at a time, so. It's beautiful. It's powerful.
Oh, well, it's so clear that you're living your purpose and helping others to just absolutely seize their own power and bring that to life. So it's been so exciting to talk to you about your own journey and your work. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
That's it for this week's Ownstream podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this amazing interview with Freyja Inanna. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode for links to everything mentioned, including Freyja's website, all of her social media profiles, and the other books and resources discussed. All of that can be found at ownstream.co/Freyja. That's ownstream.co/FREYJA.
Also, please sign up for our weekly tip-off email at ownstream.co. Just click the sign up button in the upper right-hand corner. This is where we share each Monday 3 cool things we've learned in the last week in the areas of lifestyle, business, and spirit. This could be anything from an amazing quote, individual tip, or tool designed to bring you more freedom and power in your life. So definitely sign up for that again at ownstream.co and just click sign up.
Finally, please leave us a review on iTunes. We really need your help in expanding our reach, helping us to inspire more people and spread the amazing ideas discussed on this episode with Freyja Inanna and others too. If it feels right to you, simply go to iTunes, search for the Ownstream podcast, click ratings and reviews, then click that 5th star and leave us a brief comment on how this episode has inspired you. Thank you so much for considering that. We are very grateful. Also, we're on Twitter and Facebook at Ownstream and on Instagram at own_stream. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening to the Ownstream podcast. To learn more and connect with us, please visit ownstream.co or follow us on Twitter @Ownstream and Instagram @own_stream.